Now, what happens to give rise to a movement, a nationalist movement? Firstly, there was a crisis insofar as there was money flowing into the country because of the high prices of the cocoa, but there were major food shortages in the country. So there was theoretically money, but there was little production of food for local consumption. Then in 1947, they discovered there was a serious disease affecting the cocoa trees. And the colonial government brought in scientists to study this disease. They advised cutting down thousands of trees. The locals, of course, saw this as a plot. The locals, the cocoa plantation owners, saw this and became suspicious that we're doing so well off this cocoa. Why are you telling us we need to cut down the trees? This suspicion fostered fear that their livelihoods would be lost, but the tree cutting proceeded in any case, because the colonial scientists and the forestry department and whatever decided this was the best way to proceed. The response of the locals was to boycott British businesses and Syrian and Lebanese businesses. So other small minority groups who were there, they thought that the locals thought that we're not going to let you people prosper when we are going to go down. And as a result, riots broke out in 1948 in the capital. What's the capital of Ghana, by the way? Accra. A-C-C-R-A. So 1948 riots in Accra is a turning point. 50,000 people participated in marches that was started off peacefully, but that went off track and became violent and entailed looting. There were also labor protests because of unemployment and bad conditions in the workplace. And the British again confused this as nationalist mobilization. Remember Mau Mau, which wasn't nationalist at all. In these riots in 1948, 29 people were killed by the British. Now, just before these riots, an organization called the UGCC was established. UGCC, the United Gold Coast Convention. She's an historian that knows the subject very well. United Gold Coast Convention. Okay, this was the first organization that represented the nationalist demands. Okay, 1947. It's very late. The UGCC was established as a small elite organization, typical businessmen, lawyers, educated people, people wearing suits and ties, wanting to talk to the government, delegations, and so on. After the riots of 1948, their membership increased by 25 times. 25 times expansion of their members. The leadership still remained the middle class educated elite, but the membership expanded to include working class people and peasants and so on. The founding member of this was a man called J.B. Dankwa. He's a big name that you must remember. J.B. Dankwa.
Joseph Baker.
Now he is the man who recruits Nkrumah to come back from England. He recruits Nkrumah to bring him to be a full-time organizer for the UGCC. Nkrumah had attended the 1945 conference in Manchester on Pan-Africanism. He had studied in America. His Bachelor of Arts, his first degree, was done in America. So he had an international sensibility, and he was in a college in America, which was predominantly black. They have these black, they call them mainly black colleges that he studied at, and he was from those days already had witnessed conditions of the African Americans and African American mobilizations and struggles against discrimination and so on, and then went to England. And then he was brought to England. The UGCC was not strong amongst the Asante people in the center of the country. When Nkrumah comes back, he sees the conditions and forces the UGCC to respond to the cries of the unemployed school graduates, the growing urban proletariat in places like Accra. So he had a very different orientation to the businessmen and the petty bourgeoisie who was in the leadership of the UGCC. It's very much like the Youth League and the main ANC in the 1940s. If you read that history of, that's where Mandela becomes a big strategic thinker and shifts the ANC with the tension between, and it happens again in Malema and so on. Yeah. So, okay.